Now, what Jesus knew, what other master teachers have known, is that most of the time we're running recycled thoughts. There's so many things that go around and around inside of us, and it's like being in the car, and you usually have a choice with your air system. Either you can run recycled air or you can have fresh air coming in. A Course in Miracles said we're so filled with our own voice that we cannot usually hear the voice of God. The goal is to become aware of our thoughts, is to recognize and to connect with that part of us that realizes, wait a minute, I'm thinking this, but I am not my thought. How many of you know Howie Mandel, the personality, TV, comic? Well, Howie has a cousin, a sort of a distant cousin, and Howie's cousin, when he was 4 years old, contracted polio, and so he was left without the use of his legs. So here's this little boy at 4 years old and now has to learn to walk on these braces. And life for him was pretty devastating. He was born in Tel Aviv, but during the time he was learning to walk on his braces, his parents got a radio and he heard this symphony come on and music started playing. And while he was sitting there and he heard that music, something in him quickened and woke up. And he said, a part of him at that young age said, I want to do that. That makes me feel good. It made him feel alive. It made him feel like he could move. And even though his thoughts and even though life had him in that little constricted place, this music took him out. So his parents began to enroll him in violin. He started learning to play the violin and very quickly became quite masterful. By the time he was in his teens, he came to the United States so that he could go to school at Juilliard in New York. Well, as he grew, he became a well-known concert violinist. And in 1985, Itzhak Perlman was in Avery Fisher Hall in Lincoln Center, New York. And any audience that had heard him knew that it took time, because as he walked on stage, he walked with his leg braces. He would take his time and sit down. He would undo his braces and pull one leg out and put one leg behind him, get his violin and nod his head and play. Well, this particular night when he's in this theater in New York, about 2/3 through the concert, people heard this loud noise, but it was like a gunshot, and they knew what it was. One of the strings on his violin broke. Just pow! And so there he sat. The audience was completely quiet and got reverent and thought, okay, this is going to take a while. He's got to put his braces on, get up, and go and change all of that. But what happened instead is in that moment, he dropped his head, and everyone there held this silence, and they said for just a moment he put his head down. And then he turned to the director and he nodded, and everyone was astounded because he only had 3 strings. But the orchestra started their next song, and they said he played like he has never played before. The people who were there that night, there was a write-up in New York Times, said they had never heard music come out of anyone that was like the music that came out of those 3 strings. At the end of the concert, the people stood up and just cheered with tears rolling down their cheeks. Will you give me that song again, Marilyn? And he took his bow and quieted the group. He smiled and wiped the sweat from his brow and raised his bow to quiet us, a person who attended said. And then he said, not boastfully, but in a quiet, pensive, reverent tone, you know, sometimes it is the artist's task to find out how much music you can still make with what you have left. Now, every person in this room, most of the time, can identify and feel like life is asking you to play with 3 strings instead of 4. Because remember, it doesn't matter if you're the wise one or the foolish one. The rain comes down and the flood comes up and all of this stuff happens. And so often we feel like we've done something wrong. But when they took a blind man to Jesus, they said, what has he done? Did he sin or his parents sin? Who did something wrong that he's blind? And Jesus said, nobody, neither. This is as it is, that the glory of God may be revealed. The rains come and the winds blow, and life quite often will ask you to play with just 3 strings. But the one who can get still, the one who can say, God is all there is. God is right where I am. Divine intelligence is now directing me because I'm at the end of my know-how. I not only invite it, I believe it's here because I got to play with 3 strings today. There's nothing in me that can deny me the privilege of receiving this divine guidance. And there is something in me that knows what to do under every circumstance, knows how to meet every situation, knows how to overcome every obstacle. And I am in partnership with this infinite mind. I am one with God. And you see, we don't say this to make it true. It is true. We say this to get rid of all the other stuff in there that would make us believe something else. I'm inviting us this week to remember that when these thoughts come and you feel like you're overwhelmed by life, this is the truth. I am the thinker who thinks the thought. I can change my thinking. I can change my thoughts. I am the thinker who thinks the thought. I can change my thinking. I can hold a higher thought. Those words are on the other side of your sheet. Sing it again. I am the thinker who thinks the thought. I can change my thinking. I can change my thoughts. I am the thinker who thinks the thought. I can change my thinking. I can hold a higher thought. So I invite you to close your eyes and to put the little piece of paper aside. And just take a deep breath and now put everything aside as if you were going inside of your mind and your heart and anything that is occupying your awareness. And just, through your intention, clear it out. Another deep breath and to feel yourself becoming available, open. When we let go of all that we're holding, of every thought, of every stress, and rather than being carried away by it, we move to that place of being able to observe it, but not being carried away by it. And when we move to that place, we create some distance between our life and our life experience. And we realize that everything that we've been holding and carrying around, we can now see it as it's there like a record just still playing. But now we're in a higher state of awareness, just simply observing it without judgment. No right or wrong. And as we make ourselves available and empty and no judgment, what will automatically happen is we begin to discover now what is carrying me. When I can empty myself of all the thoughts and the fears and the whatever I am carrying, to the degree that I can let go, in that same degree, I can realize that I am being sourced by life. I am being carried by this presence and this power.